The Andari were a species known across the galaxy as paragons of peace and diplomacy. Their sleek, crystalline forms shimmered with soft hues that reflected their emotions, and their melodic, harmonic speech could calm even the most volatile situations. For over a millennium, the Andari had not fought a single war, instead dedicating themselves to the arts of negotiation, healing, and cultural exchange. Entire conflicts had been averted thanks to their intervention, and their world, Sylvanis Prime, stood as a beacon of tranquility amidst the turbulent tides of galactic politics. Humanity, by contrast, was a relative newcomer to the galactic stage. Having only achieved faster-than-light travel a few centuries earlier, they had quickly garnered a reputation for their unpredictability. They were warriors, innovators, and survivors, often charging headlong into situations that other species avoided. To many, humans seemed reckless, too quick to fight, too stubborn to back down, and too fragile to survive the galaxy's harsher realities. Yet, there was something about them that intrigued the Andari. It was not humanity's technology, which lagged behind that of the Okar Dominion or the Krixar Collective. Nor was it their cultural achievements, which lacked the grandeur of the Panari Consortium's ancient operas. What fascinated the Andari was humanity's resilience. When faced with extinction, humans rebuilt. When betrayed, they forgave or adapted. And when war came, they fought with a tenacity that bordered on madness. For centuries, the Andari had maintained a strict neutrality in galactic conflicts. But that changed the day the Krixar Collective declared war on humanity. There was a conflict sparked by the usual greed for resources, this time over the mineral-rich asteroid belt of Sigma-12. The Krixar, a species of 8-foot-tall insectoid conquerors, had grown tired of negotiating with the humans and decided to take what they wanted by force. The galaxy watched with morbid curiosity, expecting humanity to be swiftly crushed. The Krixar war machine was vast and nearly unstoppable, while humanity's fleets were scattered and untested. But the humans did not fall. They adapted, they resisted, and then they began to win. The Andari Council, known for their cautious deliberations, found themselves facing a choice they had never considered: to intervene or to watch the flames of war consume a species they had come to admire. By the time the Andari made their decision, the war had reached a boiling point. The Krixar's invasion of human space was relentless, a tide of destruction that consumed entire colonies. Civilian casualties mounted, and human leadership scrambled to find ways to slow the advance. For the galaxy's younger races, the Krixar represented a ruthless inevitability. Once they set their sights on a target, it was only a matter of time before it fell. On Sylvanis Prime, the Andari Council convened in their crystal dome chamber, a tranquil space filled with cascading prisms of light. The councillors shimmered with nervous hues, their bodies rippling like liquid glass as they debated humanity's fate. For centuries, the Andari had lived by a creed of neutrality. To intervene in galactic wars, they argued, was to risk losing the very peace they stood for. "We cannot involve ourselves in this conflict," declared Councillor Valeth, his body pulsing with a pale yellow that signalled hesitation. "The Krixar are too powerful. Should we side with humanity, we may bring destruction to Sylvanis Prime itself." Lethena, a younger councillor, stepped forward. Her crystalline body glowed a determined green. "And if we do nothing, the Krixar will not stop with humanity. Their strength grows with every system they conquer. Eventually even Sylvanis will face their wrath." Valeth's form darkened, his unease spreading through the chamber. "We are diplomats, not warriors. Our strength lies in preventing wars, not waging them. This is not our fight." Lethena's tone sharpened. "It is always easier to claim neutrality when it is someone else's people burning. Humanity fights not for conquest, but for survival. That makes them unique." The council was divided. Some feared what intervention might mean for their species, while others were moved by the courage humanity displayed. Reports of human ingenuity had reached even the far corners of the galaxy. Stories of scavenged warships holding the line against Krixar dreadnoughts, and colonists turning barren moons into impassable fortresses in mere days. But for every tale of triumph, there were darker reports, of entire planets reduced to ash, of refugees fleeing across hostile space with nowhere to go. The debate dragged on, tensions mounting as arguments flared. The Andari were not accustomed to discord. Their culture prized harmony, and disputes were rare. Yet this decision had cracked their unity. Sylvanas Prime was a sanctuary, untouched by war for over 1,000 years. Many feared that aiding humanity would shatter that fragile peace. A holographic image of Earth appeared at the center of the chamber, projected by Lithena. It showed a blue-green world, vibrant and teeming with life. Around it orbited hastily constructed defense platforms, their surfaces bristling with railguns and missile pods. The Andari councillors gazed at the image in silence, their shimmering forms reflecting the planet's beauty. "Look at them," Lithena said softly. "They defend their home with scraps and hope, knowing the odds are against them, and yet they refuse to surrender. Is that not worth protecting?" Her words carried weight, but the opposition was not easily swayed. To some, the Andari's very identity was at stake. Councillor Mavanis, an elder whose form radiated deep orange, spoke with gravity. "If we abandon our principles now, what will we become? A civilization that chooses sides, that wages wars? That is not the Andari way." The debate might have dragged on for days, but a sudden development shifted the tide. A human diplomat, Ambassador Claire Hawthorne, had arrived at Sylvanas Prime under the cover of secrecy. Her battered shuttle, escorted by a pair of Andari diplomatic frigates, landed in the shadow of the Council's crystalline spires. The humans had sent her with a simple request: an audience. When Hawthorne stepped into the Council chamber, her presence was a stark contrast to the Andari's ethereal elegance. She wore a plain uniform patched in places, and her tired eyes carried the weight of a people on the brink. "You have no obligation to help us," she began, her voice steady but edged with desperation. "We understand your principles and we respect them, but neutrality has a cost. If humanity falls, the Krixar will not stop. They will grow stronger, and the galaxy will pay the price." Valith responded coolly, "And if we intervene? Are we to sacrifice Sylvanas Prime for the sake of your war?" Hawthorne met his gaze without flinching. "I can't promise you safety, but I can promise you this. Humanity will not forget those who stood with us, nor will we forget those who turned away." The words lingered in the air, sharp as broken glass. The Andari councillors exchanged glances, their shimmering hues reflecting doubt and contemplation. It was not a threat, but a stark reminder of the stakes. In the end, it was Lithena who tipped the scales. She stepped forward, her crystalline form pulsing with a soft, resolute blue. "We are not warriors," she said, "but we are not cowards either. The Krixar's strength lies in fear. If we refuse to act, we allow that fear to spread. Let us show the galaxy that peace can be defended without losing who we are." The vote was cast. By the narrowest margin, the Council agreed to aid humanity, but only covertly. The Andari would not fight, but they would provide intelligence, logistical support, and diplomatic pressure against the Krixar. It was a calculated risk, a middle path between action and inaction. Hawthorne left Sylvanas Prime with no guarantees, but her message had struck a chord. In the weeks that followed, the Andari began their subtle interventions, starting with the interception of a Krixar fleet en route to a human colony. Using their mastery of subterfuge, the Andari diverted the fleet into a star's gravity well, sparing millions of lives without firing a single shot. The alliance between humanity and the Andari had begun, but it was a fragile thing, and both sides knew that it would be tested in the fires of war. The Andari's initial support came in subtle but significant ways. They provided humanity with detailed intelligence on Krixar fleet movements, their crystalline minds able to process and decipher encrypted transmissions with astonishing speed. Andari diplomats reached out to fringe systems and neutral colonies, persuading them to provide resources or sanctuary for human refugees. Their medics, masters of healing arts both biological and synthetic, began working with human scientists to develop advanced treatments for the wounded, dramatically increasing survival rates on the front lines. For humanity, the partnership was a lifeline. While their engineers could craft weapons from scraps, and their soldiers could turn desolate moons into fortresses, they lacked the finesse and unity the Andari brought to the table. At first, there was tension. Humans were wary of the Andari's strict non-violence, and Andari envoys were uneasy in the chaotic and often heated environment of human military command. Yet, as the war progressed, a mutual respect began to grow. The Andari marveled at humanity's creativity, particularly the way they turned desperation into innovation. In one instance, a human engineer named Captain Anaya Reeves developed a method to retrofit mining lasers into makeshift planetary defense systems. The Andari, impressed, quietly improved the design and spread it to other human colonies, saving countless lives. On the battlefield, the Alliance manifested in ways no one had anticipated. Though the Andari refused to take up arms, they accompanied human fleets into war zones, deploying advanced energy shields to protect civilian populations and working tirelessly to negotiate ceasefires that bought time for evacuations. Their presence became a symbol of hope, bolstering morale among human troops and sowing confusion among the Krixar. For the Krixar, the Andari's involvement was an unexpected and unwelcome complication. Their strategy relied on swift, overwhelming force, and they were unprepared for the Andari's influence. Attempts to intimidate the Andari into withdrawing were met with calm but resolute refusals. Even when Krixar operatives assassinated an Andari diplomat, the crystalline species refused to back down. Instead, they broadcast the diplomat's final message across the galaxy, a plea for unity against tyranny that galvanized support for humanity's cause. The tipping point came during the siege of Epsilon Eridani, a critical human system that housed vital shipyards. The Krixar launched a massive offensive, deploying a fleet so vast it blotted out the stars. Human defenders, outnumbered 5-1, prepared for what many believed would be their final stand. But the Andari had a plan. Working in secret with human commanders, the Andari orchestrated a bold strategy. They had discovered a weakness in the Krixar fleet's centralized command structure. If their flagship's neural relay was disrupted, the rest of the fleet would be thrown into disarray. However, the flagship was heavily guarded, and a direct assault would be suicidal. Instead, the Andari proposed a diversion. Using their mastery of light and sound, they created an illusion, a fleet of spectral ships that appeared to materialize on the edge of the system. The Krixar, believing they were under attack by an unknown force, diverted much of their fleet to intercept the phantom threat. Meanwhile, a small task force of human and Andari operatives infiltrated the flagship. Among them was Commander Ethan Draven, a grizzled veteran who had initially distrusted the Andari. By his side was Lithenna, the Andari counselor who had championed humanity's cause. Together they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the Krixar ship, combining Draven's tactical instincts with Lithenna's ability to manipulate the Krixar's bioorganic sensors. The mission was a success. The flagship's neural relay was destroyed, and the Krixar fleet descended into chaos. Seizing the opportunity, the human defenders launched a counterattack, driving the invaders from the system. The victory at Epsilon Eridani marked a turning point in the war. For the first time, humanity and their allies had dealt a decisive blow to the Krixar. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire, inspiring resistance movements and drawing new allies to humanity's side. But the alliance between humanity and the Andari had become more than a tactical arrangement. It was a bond forged in the crucible of war, a partnership that transcended their differences. And as the conflict continued, it became clear that together, they were more than the sum of their parts. The war entered its most critical phase. Though weakened, the Krixar were far from defeated. Stung by their humiliation at Epsilon Eridani, they consolidated their forces and launched a brutal counteroffensive, striking deep into human territory. Worlds burned, and entire fleets were annihilated as the Krixar sought to crush their enemies once and for all. Humanity, resilient as ever, dug in and fought back with ferocious determination, but even their ingenuity had limits. The Andari too faced mounting pressure. The Krixar had not forgotten their role in the war and began targeting Sylvanas Prime with relentless sabotage attempts. For a species that had lived in peace for millennia, the strain of war was almost unbearable. Still, the Andari refused to abandon their allies. Instead, they doubled down, committing more resources and personnel to the fight. As the war escalated, the Krixar unveiled a terrifying new weapon, the Hive Catalyst, a massive superweapon capable of consuming entire planetary biospheres to fuel their war effort. With this weapon, the Krixar intended to obliterate Earth, humanity's cradle and symbolic heart, erasing any hope of resistance. The weapon's activation would not only end humanity, but destabilize the surrounding systems, plunging the region into chaos and consolidating Krixar dominance. In response, humanity and the Andari convened an emergency war council aboard the Resolute Dawn, a massive human battlecruiser orbiting a remote star. Leaders from both species gathered in the ship's command chamber. a stark contrast of human utilitarian design and Andari elegance. Holographic projections displayed the Catalyst's location, an artificial asteroid fortress deep in Krixar-controlled space, heavily fortified and bristling with defences. The room was tense. General Marcus Devereaux, humanity's gruff and battle-hardened military leader, spoke first. "We can't wait for the Catalyst to reach Earth. We have to take it out now, but let's be clear, this is a suicide mission. The Krixar aren't going to let us waltz in and destroy their crown jewel." Lithena, representing the Andari, stepped forward. Her crystalline form radiated a calming blue as she addressed the assembly. A direct assault would fail, but perhaps a more unconventional approach could succeed. The Andari proposed a daring plan. They would create another illusionary fleet, larger and more elaborate than the one used at Epsilon Eridani, to draw the Krixar away from the Catalyst. Meanwhile, a joint strike team would infiltrate the asteroid and destroy the weapon from within. The plan was ambitious, bordering on reckless, but humanity was no stranger to impossible odds. The room was tense. General Marcus Devereaux, humanity's gruff and battle-hardened military leader, spoke first. "We can't wait for the Catalyst to reach Earth. We have to take it out now, but let's be clear, this is a suicide mission. The Krixar aren't going to let us waltz in and destroy their crown jewel." Lithena, representing the Andari, stepped forward. Her crystalline form radiated a calming blue as she addressed the assembly. A direct assault would fail, but perhaps a more unconventional approach could succeed. The Andari proposed a daring plan. They would create another illusionary fleet, larger and more elaborate than the one used at Epsilon Eridani, to draw the Krixar away from the Catalyst. Meanwhile, a joint strike team would infiltrate the asteroid and destroy the weapon from within. The plan was ambitious, bordering on reckless, but humanity was no stranger to impossible odds. As preparations began, the bond between the two species deepened. Andari engineers worked alongside human technicians to modify their ships for the mission, while human soldiers trained with Andari operatives in techniques of stealth and subterfuge. Even General Devereaux, once skeptical of the Andari's contributions, found himself admiring their ingenuity and courage. Among the strike team were Commander Draven and Lithena, their partnership now a symbol of the Alliance itself. Where Draven brought grit and resourcefulness, Lithena brought clarity and strategy. Together, they led a diverse group of humans and Andari, united by the shared goal of saving both their worlds. The operation began under the cover of a solar storm, the illusionary fleet appearing as a brilliant, blinding swarm that seemed to dwarf even the Krixar's mightiest armadas. The Krixar, fooled once again, redirected their forces to engage the phantom threat, leaving the Catalyst vulnerable. As the strike team infiltrated the asteroid fortress, they faced harrowing challenges. Krixar drones patrolled every corridor, their bioorganic forms blending seamlessly with the environment. The team's progress was slow and dangerous, every step fraught with the risk of discovery. At one point they encountered a massive swarm of drones, forcing Lithena to use her light manipulation abilities to cloak the team in a shimmering veil of invisibility, while Draven coordinated their escape. Finally, they reached the heart of the Catalyst, a pulsating biomechanical reactor that thrummed with stolen life energy. But their presence had not gone unnoticed. Krixar reinforcements descended on the team, triggering a desperate battle. Draven and Lithena fought side by side, their contrasting styles, human aggression and Andari precision, creating a synergy that turned the tide. As the reactor destabilized, the team set their charges and prepared for extraction. But the Krixar were relentless, and escape seemed impossible. Lithena, sensing the impending danger, made a decision that stunned the team. Using her crystalline body as a conduit, she generated a blinding surge of light that disrupted the Krixar drones, buying precious seconds for the others to escape. "Go," she urged Draven, her voice resonating with resolve. "This is not an end, it is a beginning." Draven, torn between duty and loyalty, reluctantly obeyed. The strike team barely escaped as the Catalyst erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, obliterating the asteroid and sending shockwaves through Krixar space. Lithena's sacrifice was a devastating blow, but it ensured the mission's success. The destruction of the Hive Catalyst marked the beginning of the end for the Krixar. Deprived of their superweapon and reeling from their losses, the Krixar retreated from human space. Resistance movements across the galaxy seized the opportunity to rise up, further weakening the once mighty empire. On Earth and Sylvanas Prime, celebrations erupted. The alliance between humanity and the Andari had not only survived but thrived under the crucible of war. Though the cost had been great, the victory was undeniable. The galaxy had witnessed the power of unity, and both species emerged stronger for it. Draven, now a hero among both humans and Andari, returned to Sylvanis Prime to honour Lithena's memory. There, he was met with a surprise. The Andari, whose crystalline forms could refract and preserve fragments of their essence, had retained a part of Lithena's consciousness. Though she could not return fully, her voice and wisdom would live on, a testament to the bond she had forged with humanity. As the galaxy began to rebuild, the alliance between humans and Andari became a cornerstone of a new era. Together they proved that even in the darkest times, hope could shine brighter than any star, and that peace, when defended with courage and sacrifice, could be more powerful than war. It was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.